Well, you and everyone else was tall.
Yeah, well, I was 6 months old when we moved up here, so. What? Oh. Go see. Hey, how are you? Process. Oh. And someone is already. And he's. Short and sweet, yeah. Who was he talking to? Nobody wants. Okay, that sounds like.
Anna, you got a lot of them to sign tonight, so that's perfectly fine. Public safety. Sitting.
I'm always so. Feel like and all of them are all long. But yeah, I mean, I mean, like I told myself, I have time enough to do it.
It talks about.
Ruth, Jerry.
So,
Cree Avenue, from Cree Avenue south on County B, it's probably a mile, 3/4 of a mile. But I haven't filled out the papers yet. North, north to Cree Avenue, I think it. Twenty-one.
Between 21.
Now, Jerry, did you say they would give you more crossings than one?
yeah, you can cross the
But the
highway.
thing is, we got one on one side of the big hill and one on the other right now, until they get that knocked down. I don't know, it was both.
You can cross a highway. Town board meeting.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
73, we crossed. That's because the village didn't want it. It had nothing to do, no, it had nothing to do with DOT, because
Oh,
legally I can run right down 73,
really?
but it's,
State road?
state road. No, I want you can't run an interstate,
Okay,
You
well, they
cannot
wouldn't, they
run on
wouldn't be
that.
out there anyway.
Village.
not on an interstate. It would be-
Somebody still has to make it a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, if the village says, yeah, go for it, we can, but I.
I'm really irritated. I didn't get to eat
So
this
anyways,
pie, but I got the
think we can
garbage
discuss
from
the
it.
next Agenda.
I'll fill out the form. I got one from, somebody, or you?
Somebody's
Somebody.
eating
Hey, Larry.
Did you
stuff
get
up
pie?
here. No, I didn't get it.
So tonight,
I know, thank you.
double X is going to. publish next month. And I just would,
Do it all in one shot.
right, because I pay every
Wally, I
time
got a question for you. You got a sec?
to change
Hi,
them,
Mary.
so I don't wanna like, it's like,
Right.
every year you-
See if you want to- Gotta be, oh man, there was 5 or 6 questions. But you guys answered it.
They didn't go through the channels.
They were going to Richford.
Yep.
I promise I'll. Okay, all right.
Just to let you know, calling me and wants to know.
Why don't they open the whole town? We did. As soon as I get the signs put up.
You talked to
Whaley?
Whaley. You hollered at me the first time and now they're calling me
Yeah.
for something else.
It's because I actually need to update our ordinance. Every
Right.
time we do an ordinance update.
ATV.
I will follow them.
Hi, how are you?
And
Fine, thank you.
try to get out of them. Need to know. Mark.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, sure.
It's on there.
Every, but not,
You're good.
Right.
And you have a meeting on Monday.
not efficient.
Oh, I agree. It's good to see.
All right, thank you.
Nice try, John. Wait, maybe it's not.
How do you get this thing?
Oh,
to
yeah,
stick?
Y is on here, but not XX.
Hey, John.
How do you get this thing to switch?
Yeah.
Me.
Hey, how are
I
you?
can't vote anymore. They gonna do that today?
Yeah.
Hope not. They're not gonna have a.
Oh, yeah, I'm alive. Can't, look at, I have a black and blue flag.
I gotta figure out how to extend it.
Did it just start doing that?
Yeah, I just.
Shut it off and turn it on.
Good.
I didn't do it. Still cuckoo. No. Think I heard.
We don't have anything on Monday. I have a meeting, but
Always
there's
try
a
to
thing,
think
you know,
about it.
it's for commissioners, I think.
No,
So we don't
But-
have anything.
but-
for Tuesday. Yeah.
But,
I don't know where that is on my.
Well, they were
Take
gonna
the
train him.
Condition if you want to go.
Thank you, Ruth.
I mean,
I came straight from work tonight, so. Thank you.
his doesn't work at all. So
Joe, I'm coming back.
I came straight.
so we're not gonna start this voting.
No.
That's what my plan is.
Apple.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's not right.
Yeah. Yeah, I signed up for lunch, I think, breakfast and lunch both days, but that's it. At 7 o'clock? Okay, do I have an agenda here somewhere? Maybe it's under here. Got it. No, you just put stuff on top of it. Okay, gang, it's 7 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Megan is doing roll call. Okay, do you want to kind of explain about the voting machines after roll call? Want to explain about the voting thing after you're done with the roll call? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Bonfiglio, Mr. Piaski, Mr. Tim, Mr. Cap, Mr. Eckstein, Mr. Jarvis, Mrs. Colada,
Here,
Mr. King,
Here.
Mr. Waddle,
Here,
Mr. Lauer,
Here.
and Mr. Kirschner. Okay,
So this should be our last month doing this the old-fashioned way. Next month, we are hoping to start the electronic roll call system that you guys decided to go forward with. There are still a handful of you that have not gotten it downloaded on your tablets. So if you haven't done that, make sure you connect with Barry before the May meeting. We will do a little bit of training in conjunction at the beginning of that meeting for how to use it. It's pretty user-friendly and simple, but in May, both Barry and I will be here to kind of go through a little bit of training with that. And since I'm up here too, I'm just going to give a reminder that when you're speaking tonight, make sure you're speaking into the microphone. It's not for the people here, but anybody watching online can't hear anything you say if you don't talk into the mic. So make sure you're directly in there.
Thank you, Megan. All right, we'll stand for silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. And please, we lost 2 of our board members this month. I believe Marv Wagner Jr. was formerly on the board, and of course, Dennis Weddy. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed. Motion by Mr. Bonfiglio, second by Mr. Eckstein. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we'll approve the minutes of the March 16th, 2021 monthly meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Wado, second by Mr. Lauer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Unfinished business, we have none, and we'll go right to new business, and we'll start with the Sheriff's Department annual report. Sheriff Silky.
I'll try to talk into the microphone for everybody. 2020 was a unique year in the sheriff's office. So I'll try to make this quick. I sent out a packet to everybody. It was 100 and some pages. I promise I'm going to condense it down. I'm not going to go on and drone on. Staffing for the sheriff's office, obviously myself, chief deputy. We have division lieutenants for all the divisions now. We have 60 full-time employees with 1 part-time court security position. Our accomplishments for 2020, we purchased a body scanner for the jail. That was $180,000 with some COVID money. Single point entry is up and running at the courthouse. I think everybody sees that every day. And that's working well for everybody. Increased electronic monitoring for our jail. That's for the Hubers. When we had the COVID in the jail, we had to come up with a way to keep everybody working that had jobs. So as you see, the sheriff's office is probably the busiest department. We're 24/7, obviously. Same with Wautoma PD, but we take a majority of the calls. Almost 22 calls per day, law calls per day, calls for service. In 2020, we served 526 papers, totaling a revenue of $11,910. That was down from the year previous, but we're not, I think everybody kind of knew what was going on in the courthouse and things like that. So 2020, we had 805 inmates booked. 593 of those were males, 212 were females. 159 felony arrests, 418 were misdemeanors. The average daily population was 65, 18 down from the year previous. There is about an average every day or a week, we have 8 to 10 out on GPS monitoring. So that was a new program that we started up again because of COVID. Working. Traffic crashes, we had a total of 462 traffic crashes in 2020. Property damages were 375, 84 injury crashes, and 7 fatalities. As you see, the numbers are going down for 2020, a lot of less travel. Traffic stops, those are also down. test that to COVID. We weren't sure what were the effects were with contacts. We kind of backed them off, trying to keep everybody safe. Sex offenses, 43. We had 0 robberies. The graph for the sex offense chart. 43 burglaries in 2020, 85 assaults. Another graph for the burglaries. Suicide threats were 43, suicide attempts were 11 for 2020. Domestic abuse complaints, 57. Disorderly conduct complaints, 215. The graph for the domestics, how it's going down. You see also going down. Always good. Investigations, the agency assist calls for service to help other agencies within the county, 523. We had 58 emergency detentions. That keeps Ruth good. We did 61 cell phone extractions, tablets, same thing. We do some for other counties. We had 13, Zach Gunderson's our DRE. He did 13 DRE evals in 2020. We were in the top 10 in the state for that. 7 of 13 DRE evals show multiple drugs. I promise it would be short.
It was short. You want to just give a little rundown on your drone?
Drone. This year we had a donation to Crime Stoppers that purchased the drone. We have a drone unit. We have 8 pilots for the county. That seems kind of like, well, you have a lot of pilots. I wanted to make sure that we had enough pilots that we always. I know Green Lake has 3 or 4. I wanted to make sure we had enough to deploy the drone. We have an old ambulance. Thank you, Brian. We utilize that. That's a response vehicle. The drone is kept in there. Signage. There's a TV in there. We'll get this out one of these days when there's nicer for the whole county board. It's an asset to our officers. It's good equipment. Thermal imaging.
Because I've been on snowmobile and I've police officers. Now, do you guys have boat? You did have a boat patrol.
We did. We started this year. We purchased a new boat
Okay.
for CIP, and we're adding a UTV that has not came yet.
Okay.
So we're starting those patrols back up. The reason why I started those back up is because I want the state to pay for those, that equipment. So the boat patrol, that's funded 1/5 every 5 years for 5 years. So they pay for that boat and all the equipment inside it after the 5th year. The UTV is a little bit different. It's $10,000 total over 5 years. Something's better than nothing. So.
Go about doing that.
It's a state program.
Just
It's funded by the state. Yep, we have to keep track of our hours.
so many days on the lake.
That's correct.
I know that.
Absolutely.
They could request that too.
We have the county boat patrol for the whole county.
Good.
So if there's an issue, make sure they call us so we know there's an issue and we can respond. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wally. Appreciate it. I mean, Sheriff Silky. Okay, next we have a presentation on emergency medical services reorganization request. Department Director Brian Donaldson.
Thank you.
He's not going to be as fast as Wally.
I will try to keep it as short as the sheriff, but it isn't going to happen. So I'm here tonight at the request of the Public Safety Committee to share some information with you. And there we go. I'd like to tell you this is where we find ourselves today. And if we turned the clock back 10 years, that would be an accurate statement. Today, we find ourselves firmly planted in the middle of some challenges we need to address. And we've been getting there gradually over time, and we find ourselves in kind of a bad spot right now. We've got a shrinking part-time personnel pool. When I came here 6 years ago, we probably had about 30, maybe 35 people in our part-time ranks. Most of those were still active. We had to weed out some of the dead weight at that time, but we still had well over 20 or 25 at that time. Today, we're far less than that. In our full-time personnel, we've got a good thing going on, which is that they're gaining seniority. Every employer likes to have people who stick around. I think that's a fair statement to make. The problem with that is it's a double-edged sword. With that increasing seniority comes increasing time off benefits, comes an increasing rate of pay, and the increased likelihood of medical and surgical leave. Most of us know that all too well, I think. We have found ourselves, because of our shrinking part-time pool, with increased reliance on mandatory overtime. As we all know, that's expensive, damages morale, has a lot of cascading bad effects. Increasing payroll expenses, our span of control is out of control. If you reference the literature on paramedicine, the ideal span of control is one leadership position per every 5 clinicians. We exceed that considerably. The other problem is we've got one person in administration, that's me. So we have a number of tasks that are ignored, deferred, or poorly performed. That's not easy for me to admit to, but it is in fact the case. Our average full-time paramedic clinician, their base wage is about $19.32 an hour. Full-time benefits package is about 39%. That makes their adjusted base wage about getting close to $27 an hour. So if you take that into an overtime rate, you're up a little over $40 an hour. That's an important number to remember, the $40 an hour. We look at our part-timers and we see why we had a reliance on part-timers previously, because their base wage is much lower. Their benefits package is considerably less, somewhere plus or minus 10%. It's a little difficult to calculate on the part-timers. Their adjusted base wage, we'll say, is around $17 an hour. That makes their overtime wage, which they seldom get into the overtime, but when they do, they're at about $26 an hour compared to that about $40 an hour with the full-timer. So our current staffing is that we staff 4 ambulances around the clock. We do that with 21 full-time clinicians. That's our currently approved staffing model. So if you take that leaves 1 vacant shift per day, 1 24-hour shift open, because it would take 8 clinicians to fill all of the positions each day. So it leaves 1 shift open each day at 24 hours. That's 8,760 hours per year that we need to fill that missing full-timer. So 8,760. And that is before we account for any time off. So our typical full-time clinician is going to use about 168 hours of vacation each year. They're going to use about 72 hours of sick leave or earned time off each year. They're going to use about 36 hours on the Family Medical Leave Act. Now, keep in mind, the FMLA typically is taken in larger chunks, but when I average out what's been taken over the past few years by our number of full-time employees, it comes out to about 36 hours per employee per year. 24 hours of personal time, they get 1 personal day each year, and about, on average, 6 hours of funeral leave each year. So if you take that, add it up, it's 306 hours. That's another 6,426 hours annually that we need to fill. The important thing to remember here is that does not account for compensatory time off. Now, compensatory time off is an interesting thing, because not only do they accrue it at time and a half because it's in lieu of pay for overtime worked, but then when they take it off, if we have to fill it with another full-time person, we're paying the person filling it time and a half as well. So it compounds rather quickly. You can see why we want to do whatever we can to reduce the unscheduled overtime, and that will in turn reduce the compensatory time off. So if we take the 8760 to the 6426, that's 15,186 hours a year that we have to fill with part-time clinicians. To put that in numbers that you can understand more easily, that's 7.3 regular full-time employees. So if you got someone working a 2,080 hour a year job, take 7.3 of them to fill those hours. In EMS, a clinician works 2,920 hours a year, not 2,080. So even at that, it's 5.2 full-time clinicians to fill those openings. Currently have 19 part-time clinicians. And what I will say about that is that we actively recruit part-time people all of the time. We actively advertise for them. We go to job fairs at the schools, the technical colleges. We have done whatever we can to beat the bushes to find these folks. And we're continuing to see those ranks shrink. 3 of those 19 are at retirement age. I don't know how much longer they'll be with us. And one of those I just had a discussion with last night. They accepted a promotion at their primary employer, and they're concerned that their new schedule is not going to allow them to continue part-time for us. So we're going to continue to see the part-time ranks shrink. Even if we could maintain 19, if you take 15,186 hours divided by 19 people, that's about 800 hours each. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a significant commitment for a part-time job. And our typical part-time clinician, remembering that most of them have careers elsewhere, they work about 500 to 600 hours a year for us. So you can see the math there doesn't work. It would take 25 to 30 part-time clinicians if they were available when we needed them to cover that 15,186 hours. So let's turn the clock back 10 years. Needs and resources were more in balance then. Needs were met more easily by a large part-time pool. We also didn't have some of the demands administratively that we have now. The sophistication of the medical operation was significantly lower level 10 years ago. And what we find ourselves in, fast forward to today, needs are outweighing resources, and it continues to become more out of balance each day, each month, each year. So the challenges, mandatory overtime that we're requiring our clinicians to work, it has led to some really significant morale issues. Fatigue from long shifts, not unusual for them to have to work 36-hour shifts repeatedly in a week. Or the other day, we had one full-time clinician that was ending a 72-hour shift when they went off duty. That's not a good thing. All the data from the industry shows that we want to keep shift lengths at 24 hours maximum. And in fact, it shows that less than 24 hours is desirable. The reason for that is that the medical care can become dangerous because of someone who's not fully on top of their game, and vehicle operations. We see that most of line of duty deaths in EMS are because of vehicle operations, whether it's on the ground or in the air. And any fatigued person is at risk for making errors with either one. It also, from a fiscal standpoint, the inflated overtime compensation is something that we'd like to avoid. On the leadership side, it leads to an underperforming organization because there are certain things that I can't get to, certain things I do poorly, just simply because we don't have enough time to address everything. The other thing I think is important to keep in mind is, and we're not alone in this, in that there is no succession plan in EMS right now, but it's becoming a reality quickly as 2024 would be as early as I would go out if you let me stay around. That's up to you. 2027 is the latest I would go out if you let me stick around. And again, that's up to you. But best case scenario, I'm here for a few more years. We need someone who can step into that. We need to develop some qualified internal candidates. That would be the most desirable. And it would lead to a seamless transition in leadership when that day comes. Don't think of it as succession planning so much as thinking of as success planning. So it was Einstein that said the definition of insanity is to repeatedly do the same thing and expect a different outcome. We know what our solution is not. We can't keep doing the same thing because it is insanity. It has become insanity over the recent years. So what are the potential solutions? Here's the easiest one, the cheapest one, but it's not realistic. Add 8 to 10 part-time people, we can't find them. And now that 8 to 10, after what I just told you about retiring part-timers and one with a career change, that's probably more like 14. They're not there to be had. That is not, although it's a very inexpensive solution, it's not realistic. I think we got to wipe that one off the board. Add 3 full-time clinicians. That addresses the clinicians' needs, gets rid of a lot of that mandatory overtime. It's less expensive than overtime, but it does nothing to address the leadership needs of the organization. I don't think that's a good solution. Add a deputy chief. That's the model that was here before I came. That would address the leadership needs. It wouldn't address any of the clinicians' needs. It'd be very expensive. I don't see that as a good solution. Here's my proposed solution, and this is why. If we add a shift chief to each of the 3 shifts, it addresses the clinician needs because they're assigned to a transport ambulance. So they're not only functioning as an administrative person, they're functioning as a clinician as well. It addresses the leadership needs because these folks, as I'll get into, they're not just a clinician who's been promoted up through the ranks. And we can do this, the addition of the 3 positions at a net cost of about $35,000 annually over and above what we're paying in overtime right now. So that's worst case scenario. I think when you factor in the comp time a little differently, that number even shrinks a little. I said these would not be clinicians that have been promoted up through the ranks. And the reason for that is in our industry, we've done a very poor job historically of finding leadership. And that is because we take folks who are proven clinicians and we promote them. We don't give them the training they need. We don't give them the education they need. That we don't make sure they have the appropriate credentials to be in a leadership position, but they've been a great clinician for the last 20 or 25 years. So boom, they're magically now a leader. Doesn't work that way. So these positions would likely take some time to fill. Very possibly would be filled with people from outside of the state of Wisconsin because the pool is going to be limited. They'd have to be a clinician at the paramedic or critical care paramedic level. They would have to have completed or be actively pursuing a paramedicine management related degree. They would have to be credentialed or obtain credentialing from either the American Ambulance Association or the American College of Paramedic Executives. Both of those organizations offer credentials at the officer level for EMS. So what I went to the Public Safety Committee with, what I took to personnel was the idea that we fast track 2 of these positions because at this point, they would have absolutely no financial impact on us this year. We're going to spend that money in overtime and probably more than that as we burn out clinicians and they leave. Replacing somebody is extremely expensive. That we look at 2022 to add that 3rd position because we could budget for the financial impact in the next upcoming budget. We're starting that process now. And evaluate leadership compensation because it would add leadership to the organization. Right now, I can tell you based on our review of single function EMS agencies in the state of Wisconsin, our wages for leadership positions were not competitive. And we look to our closest neighbor to the south. Our leadership wages are not competitive. So what's in it for the county? And I would say that's improved employee satisfaction, which we really can't place a value on. Significantly reduced mandatory overtime It would provide internal career advancement opportunities that don't exist now. It would encourage professional development. Because right now I can tell you, if I'm a staff clinician working in our department, I have absolutely no incentive to go continue any education, better myself, because I can out earn the leader right now if I pick up some overtime. All of those things are recruitment and retention strategies, which is something we've focused on. As a county organization, we've focused on that for the last year and a half. How do we improve those things? It improved the leadership functions. I think that's invaluable. It'd take an empowered decision maker. Right now, that's me. I'm around about 25% of the time when you consider the fact we're a 24/7 operation. That'd increase that to having one here about 95% of the time. Span of control would become under control. Deferred tasks in administration would be addressed, and the succession planning or success planning would be addressed. And I think that's extremely important right now. What are the other reasons? Well, I can't go without mentioning COVID-19. The pandemic response has had a significant impact on our department. I will say that our clinicians did a fantastic job. Our medical director and I came up with some fairly stringent guidelines and processes and procedures early on, and we did not have a single, so far, have not had a single work-related infection. And that's something that we're very proud of. What I will say is that it has been the most stressful year that I have put through in EMS in either a clinician role or a leadership role, because early on when we were sending these folks out on patients we knew were positive, we didn't know that we had the right precautions in place. There wasn't enough evidence out there to tell us that we had the right precautions in place. So it's been an ugly year. Our clinicians have done a great job. Our medical direction has done a great job. So it has come together nicely. County's going to receive or has received about $4.5 million in COVID relief. I would ask you to share some of that with us. Department outperformed our 2020 budget by about $250,000. We did that by balancing revenues and expenses. There's no magic there. And I can't stand here and tell you that we're going to perform that well this year or that we're going to perform that well the year after this. There's no guarantee. And in our particular department, costs are directly associated with expenditures, which are directly associated with our demand. So we have seen increasing demand over the past few years. As I said, you turn the clock back to 2011, they were running about 2,500 total calls a year. Last year, we ran over 3,200 calls for the year. So demand is up over 25%. The annual fleet replacements, we've done what we can to maintain reasonable cost levels there. What would be costing us about $175,000 a year now costs us about $115,000 because we've set our sights a little lower. Found a truck that works well. It's a little bit smaller. It's not as small as a van, so everybody's happy. And the price tag is considerably less. So that saves us about $60,000 a year. This year we had budgeted for a new ambulance, which we won't need because the COVID relief monies bought us a new ambulance for this year. That was back in December. I think we took delivery on that one. The other thing is the quick response vehicle was due to be replaced this year. And rather than purchase a vehicle, we took the transit van from the fleet, which the crews hated anyway. We made that our quick response vehicle. Works well in that role. So that saved us $175,000, $180,000 right there. Why am I telling you all this? Because I think that we've shown historically, at least in the recent past, the past several years, that we've been fiscally responsible in our department. I wouldn't be standing here asking you to go with this plan if I didn't believe it was fiscally responsible. With that said, and I went as quick as I could. Was it quick enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions that I can help to answer? Yes, sir.
Are we still providing some service to Marquette County and Adams County?
We do. We serve the three eastern townships in Adams County. And we serve a township and a half in Marquette County, which is Nescoro and half of Crystal Lake.
Are we able to recoup those hours in that from their county? I mean, is it-
We contract with each of those townships in Adams County, and we contract with the county of Marquette to provide per capita compensation. So we're compensated for providing those services. Not to mention we bill just like we bill anybody when they receive the service.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We had this presentation at Public Safety, and one of the representatives of the employees and the union was there. She can't speak tonight because of our rules, but they are in favor of this plan. So I think they're getting a little tired of doing double shifts, and so. And we have good people. We need to keep them on board if at all possible. All right, next, let me see here. That was a good presentation, Brian. I think it says it all. Okay, discussion of possible motion action items, the contract between the County of Waushara and the Samuels Group.
Okay. All right, so I met with Building and Grounds, was that last week already? Yeah, and I told them that I would be here today just to kind of talk a little bit about the contract that I had shared with Ruth, and we went over that, and that's what's before you is, I would say more generic in nature. And the reason that it's more generic in nature is because we've just got through a master plan discussion, and now we're going to step into the next phase of design, which we call schematic design. And the steering direction of what the next steps are is the master plan that we adopted back in March. The priorities that we're going to jump into first are going to be the EMS buildings, the one in Poisippi and the one here in Watoma, as well as the government center. And what we shared with the Building and Grounds, some of the first steps that we're going to do is we're going to go through and do a program verification. So when we went through the master plan, we identified the size and the space of certain departments. We have not created a floor plan for each one of them. So in order to make sure that we are as efficient that we can be with the floor plan, we're going to go through and verify the program, which is the space needs that's there, refine it if needed. That's going to incorporate multiple meetings with department heads and departments, and obviously you and other staff. The other thing it's going to involve is some surveys. There's some surveys that are going to be sent out to groups to be able to make sure that we're getting the exact look for the facility and some of the visioning that's going to be done in there. And all of that's going to be taking place, after we move forward into this first phase of design. The structure of the contract is based on our initial interview and proposal to you. When we met with you about a year ago, was it, or was it before then? We talked about one point of contact, that you guys wanted to have one point of contact, and then we would manage that entire process. So that's how the contract is set up. We, as a construction manager, or who would be under contract with you, we would then have a contract with Venture to be able to deal with the design on the government center. We'll probably do some of that design for those smaller facilities in-house. But then when we put the project out to bid, everything will be publicly bid in multiple bid packages, smaller bid packages, and then those contracts would be held by us us as well, so that you don't have multiple issues out there. So at the end of each project design, we're going to bring to you a floor plan. We're going to bring to you a concept and a budget. We will look for your approval to take it out to bid. When we take it out to bid, we will then have a public bid opening where we'll read the bids aloud. We will take the bids back, do a qualification to identify the lowest qualified bids in every one of those categories, and come back to you with a recommendation for you to approve the award for each one of those projects. So I'm kind of giving you the Reader's Digest version of what the contract's going to be and the approach that's in there. So a couple other things that I just want to go over with you. The first things we're going to want to do on some of these sites is soil boring survey, we talked about that. There is some land that we need to look at for acquiring for a couple of those areas. Building and grounds, we talked about community communications and how important that was to keep the community engaged in the process. And what we're going to do is create a project website. And what that is it's really going to give them, it's not real time. It's not like they're going to see us in meetings, but we'll give them updates in regards to progress and the development that we bring before the committees and you, the board. So it's kind of in a nutshell, the summary of the contract. Does anybody have any questions about the approach? No?
No questions.
All right. Thank you very much.
That's what happens when you keep us up to date all the time. then I
Yeah.
have no questions. Thank you very much, Kurt. Okay, next we have the we have to vote on that. Do we, okay. Do we want a roll call vote, Ruth? All right. We need a motion to approve the contract. Motion by Mr. Kirschner, second by Mr. Bonfiglio. We will have a roll call vote.
Mrs. Colada,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Waddle,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner, Mr. Bonfiglio, Mr. Piaski, Mr. Tim, Mr. Cap, Mr. Eckstein,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis.
Yes.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, next, we have a contract with Public Administration Associates for an administrator recruitment services. I'll entertain a motion to approve. So moved by Mr. Bonfiglio, second by Mr. Eckstein. Would you like Ruth to explain this, or are you ready to vote?
What's the,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
Executive committee had asked for us to get some bids on some companies that would be able to help us recruit a county administrator, first and foremost, to talk to you and refine the job description and make sure that you were getting what you wanted. Because I'll tell you, the current job description is not what was being done. And so you have to decide what you want to do. The current job description was very technical, and there was things like being the EEOC compliance officer and being in charge of affirmative action and doing things like that. And all of that stuff has been farmed out to other departments, other individuals in the county. And so you need to decide what you want the administrator to do, and we need to revise the job description. So I did send out a request for bids. We got 2 back. A couple of other companies that other counties had used had both declined to provide a bid. One is getting out of the recruiting business, and one said that they were currently going through some staff problems or staff issues and staffing, and they didn't have staff to do it. So we got a quote from Governing HR, which is out of Northern Illinois. And they would put together a brochure. They would post our job on their website. They send out mass emails about jobs. That would still be a potential once you had your job, but they didn't really have a lot of the helping you define the position and then going out and searching for the position. So Public Administration Associates was the other one that we had gotten a bid from. They have previously worked with Green Lake County. They worked with the city of Wautoma when they did recruiting for the city administrator, and their bid was $13,500. And included in that bid was that if the administrator had left within, I think it's the first year, the proposed contract is in your packet, that they would redo that stuff for no additional cost. So there is some, a little bit of benefit there that if it doesn't work out, that we don't have to completely start over, and they'll already have been involved in the process.
Have any questions for Ruth?
I think they have multiple offices in Wisconsin. I believe that there is one in Oshkosh and one in Whitewater. So they are here locally.
Any more questions? Ruth, would you like a roll call vote on this? Thank you.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Waddle,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner, Mr. Bonfiglio, Mr. Piaski, Mr. Tim, Mr. Cap, Mr. Eckstein,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis,
Yes.
Mrs. Coletta.
Yes. All right, thank you. And next we'll go to the amendments to the county board bylaws. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Lauer. Second by Mr. Bonfiglio. Thank you. Do you, would you like Ruth to explain anything to you, or, I mean, there were just probably housekeeping changes, right, Ruth?
So we usually look at these every couple years. The reason that we started looking at it this year was that the way we do business has changed and a lot more meetings are done virtually. The emergency order that you had previously approved ends today. And we are not asking for it to be renewed because we believe that the county is functioning in a manner that there is nothing emergent that's coming up that couldn't go through proper committee channels to get approved. But that doesn't change the fact that some meetings are still going to be held virtually. And the previous bylaws indicated that you had to appear in person at a meeting in order to get per diems and to talk about quorums. So there was no provisions for any virtual meetings. We anticipate that even after COVID is done, there will still be some virtual meetings. Some of these meetings that take place in multi-counties that maybe are not, it's more efficient to do them virtually than to have people driving all over for a short period of time. So that was one of the reasons why we started looking at it. The other changes, we added the Marquette-Waushara County Loan Committee, which is a new committee for us after we went through the close program to buy out those loans. And then there were a couple of committees who things had changed, and Chair Coletta had asked that we had changed before that the county administrator would appoint all of the county board committees. And then in reviewing how that process worked and talking to some people at local government and some other individuals, the county administrator under the statutes has the authority to do certain duties, but the county board can retain the ability to appoint members to its standing committees. And so Chair Coletta had asked that that change be made to change that. So those are the big changes in the bylaws this year.
We're just going back to the way it was done before we had an administrator, as far as the committee appointments are concerned.
Except for some of them that are statute, and then the
Yeah.
administrator will still do that. And he'll do some, he or she will do some of the other appointments.
Mhm. All right. We have a motion and a second. This does not require a roll call vote.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Megan, this would have been a great meeting to have your little voter. Okay, next we have the vacation policy modification, and Ruth is going to steer us through that.
So as Brian had talked about in his presentation, there has been a task force that's made up of about half a dozen county board or department heads who have been chipping away at different policies and working on the recruitment and retention piece along with administration and HR. And one of the things that we've noticed from some of our exit interviews and some of our surveys for onboarding employees, that it has become an issue to attract quality employees if they are leaving a job and have any type of experience and any type of vacation, and then they come back to the county and they start over with zero vacation if they're an hourly employee. So the task force went to the personnel. We did talk to administration. There has to be some changes to our software and ADP and how it tracks things. And they will have to come and modify that. But we are asking that it be changed so that people get a week's vacation when they're first hired. They're not able to access it for the first 6 months. If there was some real tragedy, or if there was a pre-planned vacation that we knew about when we were hiring them, that would probably be able to be waived. And if they left within that first year, there would be no payout of that time. So that would just be the county's time. But it would be a little bit of something for them, because otherwise the only time that they get off is ETO, earned time off. And that's a multiplier based upon how many hours you work. And so that kind of accrues slowly over time. So that is our request. In talking to HR and ADP in the software change, it's easier for them to implement and for HR to make sure that there are no mistakes if we only have 2 categories of people. And right now we have the pre-2012 people and the after 2012 people. And so we would still maintain those categories. So there would be some people who are already hired that once we were able to make the software change would get their vacation adjusted immediately instead of on their anniversary date.
I will entertain a motion by Mr. Jarvis, second by Mr. Kirschner.
I have a question.
Hey, Pat, fire away.
In reading that, the way it was explained is that first year, after 6 months, they can take a vacation if it's due. But also it states in there that if they're terminated before the end of the first year, what if they take a vacation after 6 months and then they're terminated before the end of the first year? What happens then? Do they pay that back to the county? That's my question.
That's not how it's written. That certainly is something that could be added in. And then we would have to work out something at their termination to be able to take that from their final paycheck. It was just written that if they left and there was anything left in their vacation bank, they would not get paid out if it was within that first year. But that is a change that you could make. That's not how it was written. Frankly, I didn't even think of that, Pat.
I know that happens. So just tell you it can happen. So.
It can happen.
Yeah,
You're right.
so.
People could do that, Larry. Yep. And certainly if you would like me to take it back and bring it with that change for next month, I am more than happy to.
What's your pleasure? We have a motion and a second on the floor. We would have to
Vote on that.
vote on
and then you
that,
could-
and then if you want to make a different motion, if you want to table it, to have rework it, that certainly could be done.
Can you vote?
Yeah, we'll vote.
Can you vote and then still make a change afterwards?
If we defeat this,
Well,
you have to vote.
Well, it's a policy. It's as good as long as you make it good. So if you want to amend the policy, you can certainly amend the policy. So yeah, I mean, you could vote on this and then you could make a motion to amend it right away and have me change the language, or you could make a motion to send it back and have it changed. You could make a motion to deny it and tell me what you want me to do and bring it all back next month. Whichever. No, it is not important to decide this tonight.
Okay.
I'll be back with more changes next month, so trust me.
So right now we have a motion and a second to approve the vacation policy. So all in favor of that? Opposed? You gotta vote one way or another, right?
Well, I guess if nobody votes, the motion fails.
Okay,
Okay.
that failed. Now,
I'd make a motion that you rework it with the 2 items that Larry and I spoke of.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay, we have a motion by King, second by Tim. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Ruth.
Yep.
Next, we have consideration of possible action on the following resolutions and ordinances. Resolution number 21-04-21, a resolution authorizing reorganization of EMS to create 3 additional non-union employees, shift chief positions, and the reclassification of the EMS director to EMS chief. Motion by Mr. King,
Second.
second by Mr. Wadle, and I'm assuming this is a motion to approve.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This one will require a roll call vote.
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner, Mr. Bonfiglio, Mr. Piaski, Mr. Tim, Mr. Cap, Mr. Eckstein,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis,
Yes.
Mrs. Colada,
Yes,
Mr. King.
Yes.
thanks. Next, we have a resolution number 22-04-21, a resolution authorizing fund balance restrictions, commitments, assigns, and reappropriation of specified funds from 2020 to 2021. Motion by Mr. Lauer, second by Mr. Jarvis. If you have any questions, Ms. Lucchini is here if you have any questions for her. Okay, and we'll have another roll call vote.
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner, Mr. Bonfiglio, Mr. Piaski, Mr. Tim, Mr. Cap, Mr. Eckstein,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis,
Yes.
Mrs. Colada,
Yes,
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Wadle.
Yes.
thank you. Next, we have resolution number 23-04-21, a resolution recognizing Phelan Kremp for creating a new logo for Waushara County.
Motion approved.
And Mr. Lauer made a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Cap. Okay. Jennifer, would you like to come up and read the resolution?
Whereas the Waushara County Wellness Committee approached the county administrator and county board chair about the possibility of creating a new logo to be used consistently throughout the county. And whereas a request was sent out to the Tri-County, Watoma, and Wildrose Area School District art teachers to have students submit proposed logos for use by Waushara County. And whereas the county received multiple submissions and the design submitted by Phelan Kremp from the Watoma Area School District was picked by the committee and submitted to the Public Works Board for approval. And whereas the Public Works Committee approved use of such logo throughout Waushara County departments to help promote all that Waushara County has to offer. Now therefore, the Waushara County Board hereby thanks Phelan Kremp for her participation and congratulates her on designing the winning logo for Waushara County and presents her with the Waushara Chamber gift certificate as a token of our gratitude. Be it further resolved that this shall be the new logo for Waushara County.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Jennifer. And then Mr. Eckstein will be available at the end of the meeting for pictures, yes. Next, we have resolution number 24-04-21, a resolution supporting the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program Grant Award to the Ice Age Trail Alliance in Waushara County. We have a motion by Mr. Eckstein to approve. Second by Mr. Lauer. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we have ordinance number 661, an ordinance amending Waushara County Code numbers 8, 54, and 58. A motion by Mr. Bonfiglio, thank you. And a second by Mr. Lauer. Do you have any questions? Okay. No questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we have an ordinance number 662, an ordinance amending Chapter 50, Article 4, ATVs, Waushara County Code.
Chair Claudia, if I may.
You may.
I'm going to ask the county board respectfully to please table this motion until next month, and this is the reason why. I also will have, potentially there has been another application filed for a portion of road on Double X. And there will be another portion on County B that Supervisor Wadel is getting for me. Supervisor Lauer and I are working on some of the language on the signing so that we can do that more efficiently. And it costs us money every time I update the ordinances. So if I could do them all at one time, it would be better for me and more cost effective for the county. So I'm asking you to table this for 1 month so I can bring back the whole package next month.
Motion by Mr. Kirschner to table, second by Mr. Jarvis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Appointments, we have a Planning and Zoning Committee appointment, John Van Amberangen. Is that right, Larry? Close, okay, from Pine River. He is going to take the place of Carl Grizzard on the Planning and Zoning Committee. His term will be, he'll finish Mr. Grizzard's term from April 2021 to April 2024. Motion by Mr. Lauer, second by Mr. Jarvis to approve. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The next appointment is the Board of Health. Dr. Zachary J. Sisbaseman. Okay. MD Wapaka. His term will be May 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022. I believe he's replacing the other doctor that was on the board, right, Everett?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Eckstein. Second by Mr. Lauer. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we have an appointment to the Library Services Committee. Mr. Wadel is unable to attend the meetings because they're usually on a Monday morning. And so Mr. Jarvis has agreed to take his place on that board. Yes, Mr. King.
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Wadel to approve. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Proclamations, ready? First one is recognizing April 26th through 30th, 2021 as Work Zone Awareness Week.
Whereas the Wisconsin County Highway Association is asking all 72 counties in the state to unite and kick off Work Zone Safety Awareness Week with a campaign to raise awareness for its workers, the traveling public, public safety workers, and those of various highway contractors performing work for the counties. And whereas construction and maintenance activities on our streets and highways periodically require that work zones be established. And whereas in Wisconsin, there is an average of 2,677 work zone crashes each year, and there has been over 13,000 crashes resulting in 5,200 injuries and 50 deaths over the past 5 years. And whereas in 2019, Wisconsin suffered from nearly 2,500 crashes in road construction and maintenance zones, resulting in nearly 900 injuries and 17 fatalities. And whereas between 2014 and 2018, there were 67 fatalities recorded as a result of crashes in Wisconsin work zones, including 3 Wisconsin County highway workers, which were killed in work zones in 2015. And whereas through their enforcement activities and other participation, the Waushara County Sheriff's Office, Wisconsin State Patrol, and Waushara County Highway Department are committed to working together in 2021 to make Work Zone Awareness Week a success. And whereas the Federal Highway Administration has designated April 26th through 30th, 2021 as National Work Zone Awareness Week. Now, therefore, the Waushara County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim that the week of April 26th through April 30th, 2021 be designated as Work Zone Awareness Week in Waushara County.
Thank you, Megan. Motion by Mr. Lauer, second by Mr. Eckstein. And I will tell you that there is legislation pending for this and to help them. Well, I believe they're talking about, you know, the flaggers being able to wear cameras and, you know, and we're very lucky in this county because the Sheriff's Department really helps out when they need it. And so, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, recognizing May 9th through the 15th, 2021 as National Police Week and May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day.
Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the Waushara County Sheriff's Office play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Waushara County. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Waushara County Sheriff's Office unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, Donna Collada, Chair of the Waushara County Board of Supervisors, calls upon all citizens of Waushara County and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 9th, 2021 through May 15th, 2021 as Police Week, with appropriate observances in which all people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities and in doing so have established for themselves an inviolable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Chair Collada further calls upon all citizens of Waushara County to observe May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes.
Thank you, Megan. We have a motion by Mr. Waddell, second by Mr. King. I think now more than ever, we need to show our law enforcement officers that we do stand behind them. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, recognizing May 2nd through the 8th, 2021 as Correctional Officers Week.
Whereas correctional officers are responsible for supervising offenders convicted of crimes and sentenced to serve time in local jails, regional jails, or state correctional facilities. And whereas correctional officers are committed to ensuring public safety by supervising offender conduct and behavior to avoid conflicts and escapes and maintaining security within the facility. And whereas correctional officers are dedicated to protecting offenders while promoting positive behavior, attitudes, and skills which will improve the offender's chances of becoming productive members of society when they are released from custody. And whereas correctional officers are crucial to the statewide reentry initiative and reducing recidivism, as they play a critical role in preparing offenders for successful assimilation into the community after release. And whereas correctional officers strive to maintain a safe working and living environment in correctional facilities throughout the state, often in the face of significant challenges and dangers. And whereas Correctional Officers Week offers an opportunity to acknowledge and honor Waushara County correctional officers for the important work they perform each day and the sacrifices they make to protect the citizens of Waushara County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Waushara County Board of Supervisors recognizes May 2nd, 2021 through May 8th, 2021 as Correctional Officers Week in Waushara County and calls this observance to the attention to the citizens of Waushara County.
Thank you, Megan. Motion by Mr. Jarvis, second by Mr. Waddle. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Recognizing May 16th to the 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week.
Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service and has played a key role in the current pandemic response. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services team are ready to provide essential medical care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency medical care dramatically improves the survival, recovery, and satisfaction of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill gaps, including out-of-hospital care, preventative medicine, telemedicine, and follow-up care. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency medical dispatchers, first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, and others. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of education, specialized training, and continuing education to enhance their medical knowledge and skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, Donna Collada, Chair of the Waushara County Board of Supervisors, calls upon the citizens of Waushara County to observe the week of May 16th through 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week in honor of the selfless service of our emergency medical services providers, past and present.
Thank you, Megan. Motion by Mr. Kirschner, second by Mr. Waddle. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we need board suggestions for future agenda items. Yes, Larry. Yeah? Right now, Barry is on, funeral leave. But he will be back later this week, and I would suggest that you bring it in and drop it off with him and have him take a look at it, or you can call him because he can take control of your laptop and check, and see what's going on.
Am I the only one?
You're having problems too, Bob?
I have, but I think it's operator error.
Sometimes, and I was having a couple problems with mine, and he told me to shut it off completely, and then turn it back on again. You did that, okay. Well, then that's about the extent of my knowledge, technology. So I would suggest, Larry, that if you could give Barry a call, and then he'll take it over, or he'll have you bring it in, okay? Well, I don't know what else to tell you. Barry probably does it. All right, I'll entertain, well, you'd probably need to bring it in to have that new program put on it anyway. So you could, do you want to leave it tonight with Megan? Yes, so, yep. So you probably need to leave it with Megan if you're not going to use it, and it sounds like you can't use it. So if you leave it with Megan and let Barry look at it, and, I'm sure he'll call you and let you know when it's ready.
So there's no provision for something wrong with these when we're voting? I mean, Yeah, okay.
What?
That's good. I wanted my vote to count.
Oh, yeah, we want your vote to count too, Pat.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Exine to adjourn, a second by Mr. Tim, and that is not debatable.
So,
Just note about.